Oh,
We're traveling. Oh, what's that up there? Wow.
Yeah, it looks like a cloud.
they're traveling. Okay.
I'm not sure what that is. It's a cloud.
Yeah, I really do. Okay.
Wow.
Oh, no, I'm not so down.
Cynthia, can you mute me and Gary?
Okay, there we go. Okay, so. And if I find a pair I like, I'll buy them every color they got. Yeah. Now, I've gone to work before with two different shoes on.
80 miles
Now, I had two different color shoes on, but they had the same amount of heel. Let's see. Cynthia's gonna try to mute everybody. Maybe not me, Cynthia, just one time.
What? You told me?
Oh, Tammy wanted to know if you could mute everybody. She said, yeah. I don't know how this thing works. She is. And she's traveling. I can't. Oh, like this. You are so small. Okay, yeah, very, very small, brother. Oh, great. That's great. All right. The challenge, I will not ever be the IT person.
Remember that.
Okay, we're gonna get started. And we're glad you're here. And we're glad you're here. You too. Okay, so for me, I'll start to tell you that might be absolutely impossible. We got a good lesson today, and it's very practical, I think, for the time that we're living in. When I think we see a lot of people, and you can disagree with me, it will not be the first time, it will not be the last. But we have a lot of people who put their trust in a lot of things other than the Lord. And there are a lot of people that want us to trust them. All you got to do is watch TV for about 30 minutes, and you're going to see 748 people that want you to trust them. Okay? with all the failures, with all the achievements in their lives, they still want us to trust them. Right? Okay. God wants us to trust him. And he has had no failures. And he's always constant. And he's always the same. And God wants us to trust him above anything else and above anybody else. Because we know no matter what's out there, God is the only one who was created. Okay, Tammy, can you mute yours?
I will.
No,
Okay.
I can't. Let's see.
Did I do it right, Cynthia? I guess. All right. Tammy, can you hear me? Don't know. Okay, so yeah, Tammy can hear us. Okay. Okay. First thoughts. Sometimes we have a plan. Okay. And sometimes we avoid doing other things or other situations because they might interfere with our plans, right? Yeah. So we focus. We kind of have, when we have a project, sometimes we kind of get that tunnel vision, don't we? That's all we can see for that moment. But with God, He sees everything. He can handle all the little setbacks, the non-surprises to Him, surprises to us that might seem to try to get in the way of the plan. And He can maneuver around that. We're not as good at that. It's easy to give up, isn't it? I mean, as humans, it's very easy to give up. We see people give up all the time. And, you know, sometimes there's that old saying, I just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And some people say, if you see that light, it's another train coming. So, and that's not a good thing. But for us as Christians, who is the light at the end of our tunnel? Jesus. And who is that light in the tunnel? Jesus. And who is that light before we got to the tunnel? Jesus. So Jesus is always there for us. As Christians, he's always there. He's going to be there. And no matter how dark our circumstances might be, if we can just focus on Him, we can see that light. We can see that light at the end of the tunnel. And that is very hard to do sometimes because for me, I don't know about you guys, because I am so human. You know, I'm nothing but human. That's all I am. And it's very hard sometimes to concentrate on the big picture. For the Israelites, you know that they have the Babylonian Empire would take over, right? And destroy Judah and the capital city, Jerusalem. Many of the survivors would be carried into captivity and forced to settle outside the city of Babylon. And they would be there for approximately 70 years. That is a long time. I'm 60. Some of you are, some of you aren't.
I'm new, I just can't.
Okay, well, don't think about it. Don't think about it. It'll be all right. That's what I do. I just don't think about it. A guy I saw a couple of years ago, he told me that age is a number and health is reality. So just kind of focus on that sometimes. But after you've gone through something for so long, it would be easy to give up on hope, wouldn't it? It would be easy to give up on a promise, wouldn't it? But when God tells us he'll see us through, is he just talking about in this life that we're living now? What is God saying? Forever and always. Yeah. Because he never changes. And that's what we're going to kind of focus on in these scriptures today as we go through this. And so, we can say that the Israelites, well, why didn't they believe all the time? Why weren't they steadfast? They're not steadfast for the same reason we aren't. We're human. And, we have all this history. We have the Bible that we can go back and read. We can see God's promises. We can see the fulfillment of God's promises. But yet, sometimes when things get out of our control, it's difficult, isn't it? To be the person that we want to be all the time, because we're human. So, but God told him that he would redeem them. That was his promise. God knew that Israel would fall. He knew that Israel would be overthrown. He knew that they would go into captivity, but he also knew that he would restore them one day, just as he did out of Egypt. He took them out of Egypt. He cared for them. He led them to the promised land, right? But what drove the Israelites out of the promised land? What caused their fall?
Distrust.
Distrust.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Sin. Yeah. Doubt. Disobedience. Yeah. All those things that we still have today, right? They've just carried on down to another group of people. And that's what drove them out. But did God give up on them? No. God always keeps his promises. That's the one thing that we're going to really hone in on today. Do you feel captive during this period that we're going through now? No. Do you feel isolated? Do you think there are people that do? Yeah. And who do you think those people are clinging to?
Or things, or their company, or worldly things. Like, that's not where it's at.
Right.
I'm sorry, but it's not. So I think versus Christian people, it's just a different feeling altogether. Yeah. I mean, this is trusting God. You're going to be able to do anything. But some of these people are reacting to this like this is doom, gloom, the end of their whole life. Right.
They are. But we have that hope, don't we? We have God. And when it all comes down to it, he's really all that we need. And people can say, well, no, you got to have food and water. But you know what I'm talking about. At the end of the day, we need God. At the beginning of the day, we need God. And so I think some people today do feel captive. I think people are very scared. But we know that God is the answer to all of that. And as Christians, we should be the ones that can give them that hope through Jesus Christ. So the first section is called the true God. And in verses 1 and 2, they're having a celebration thing. And so they've adorned these idols, all right, dressed them up real good. How did it say it? He said, it was likely reference to a religious festival in Babylon known as Akitu. As part of the ceremony, idols represented the Babylonian gods were decorated and carried around the city on a cart. Yeah. So you can picture that, right? Dressed as they would have been dressed, and probably had a lot of gold and silver draped around these idols, and they're toting them around, you know? So that's what's going on, and this is what is being addressed at the time. And so verse 3 says, listen to me, house of Jacob, all the remnant of the house of Israel who have been sustained from the womb, carried along since birth. So God tells his captive people to listen. And he tells us today to listen, doesn't he? You just gotta have that ear out for God sometimes. You know, people say, I'll keep an eye out for it. You know, we need to keep an ear out for God. We need to always be listening, and that's hard to do because it gets awful noisy sometimes up in here in this head of mine. It gets real noisy. But he's telling his people to pay attention to what he's done. Can you remember something that God has done in your past that you maybe had a lot of doubt about, and God was able to bring you through that? Can you think of something like that? Several things, not just one. And how does that help secure your faith in God?
It's really good.
Mhm.
But it's hard to remember that.
Yes, it is.
Tell me that that's easy. No, it's not.
No.
We forget where we were 2 years ago. 2 years ago, in just a few weeks, he had open heart triple bypass surgery.
Mhm.
And then something else happens, and you fall right down into that pit. So I agree with you that it does,
Mhm.
but it is not easy to retain your trust that you have.
Yeah,
It isn't for me.
I think that's true. We remember, but maybe we don't always remember with the trust that we should.
Yeah, maybe
But you're right. And those things are what strengthen us, you know, in the long run. All
And
these,
maybe that's why we have to continue to go through trials to be strengthened.
Yeah.
What do you think?
we could. It don't seem like a good idea at the time, but I'm sure on the other side, looking back, you know, for that moment.
Are you really ashamed of yourself? You feel like, are you that weak? Are you that immature? Are you that? Where's your faith, girl? Where's your strength? And then, you know, you beat yourself up about it.
But you
I'm not
should.
gonna sit here and tell you that one test
Mhm.
is gonna fix all that. It's just life.
Yeah.
Trying again. So when you get a little handful of stuff that you can't fix, I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. Let alone for someone else that you care about.
Yeah.
It's a hard lesson.
Yes. But with those handfuls that we have, we're all sitting here today, aren't we? Why?
Because God let you through.
Because God got us through it, and we're thankful, aren't we? We are so thankful for the things that he's done for us. So today, let's put this scripture. Let's direct the scripture to us today, and what we go through. And so he says, listen to me. He's saying, listen, remember, you know, remember that you used to be in Egypt. Remember I took you out. Remember you're in captivity, but I have not forsaken you. And that's what God is telling them. And today, with our struggles and with our fears and with our, you know, sometimes our less than faithful that we should be, that's not even but that's phonetics. Okay. When we're less than faithful, or when our faith seems to dwindle a little bit, you know, God is still there. He's still caring for us. He says he has sustained us from the womb and carried along since birth. So there were some of those. This shows, it says in the teacher's book, that this shows from the womb and carried them since birth is a parallel that shows God is Father and Israel and his child. Now you remember back in verses 1 and 2, it talked about how the people had to carry their idols, right? So what is the sharp contrast between the people with the idols and God's chosen people? Who carries who? What's the difference? He's carrying us. And they had to do what? They had to carry their idols. They created their idols, but who created God? So there you go. And that's what God is saying. He said, I have been with you since birth. And that might be that could be for us since our birth. For Israel, it could be since the birth of that nation, going all the way back to Abraham and the promises made, and the promises that have been fulfilled, and the promises that God has kept, and the promises of a future, that we, as we go back and read the Bible, we can see all of that fulfilled, and that's comforting to us, right? If God did it for them, he'll do it for us, right? Just a different time. Let's see where I got to here. It says, at no time, even in captivity, and at no time through our trials and our tribulations, are we outside of God's control. God always is in control, always. And even though it might feel like he's not, even though I've heard people say before, and I know you've heard this, God, where are you? And sometimes when people are in severe despair, that's what they cry out, God, where are you? And it's hard to answer questions for people when they're in despair. When they're really, really suffering, and sometimes people can be alone, even with a whole lot of people around. You can still be alone because, we don't really know what is going on in that person's heart. But we know that God is always there, no matter how bad it gets. And the same, is true for us as Christians. Sometimes it's hard. A lot of times it's hard. A lot of times it's hard. But we know that God is there and he will be with us. And he has been with us since we were conceived. It's a long time. And he has been faithful to us. It hasn't always been easy. He didn't promise that. He just said he would be with us and he would get us through it. Y'all have any comments on that scripture? Right. I will be the same until your old age, and I will bear you up when you turn gray. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will bear and rescue you. Now he's talking to the Israelites here, because they're in captivity, but he is talking to us today too. I kind of giggled when I saw that, when you turn gray. He can see my gray through this color. He can indeed. But he says, I will be the same. Now, this sounds like a father talking, doesn't it? You think of a child, a small child that needs a father, an adult, caring person. And he says, I'll be the same until your old age. How long will we love those children that we care for? Till we take our last breath. So with God, we can kind of turn that around, can't we? He will care for us until when? Ever. Till we take our last breath here and until we go to be with him in glory. He's always with us. And that is just so comforting. And he said, I will bear you up when you turn gray. He'll give you color. He says, I have made you, and I will carry you and I will rescue you. What a promise from the Lord, right? He's going to be there always and forever. There was a song. Yeah, I know it. Do what? Yeah, and I do that at work too. It's right. So, but God is always and forever.
And yet we forget this. We forget that verse right there. Because when we get to going through that bad thing, we want to say, why me?
Yeah.
We forget.
Yeah,
We
we do.
forget it can do this forever. Because it's like Jesus said, it leaves us, when we go through the bad things before. But we need to remember that he doesn't promise us that life's going to be perfect. And we don't need to have a pity party. We don't need to feel sorry for ourselves. But we see this person over here that seems to have the easy road. But we don't know what they're going through internally.
You don't.
We do not know. But we got to remember that God, he don't leave us. We move, not him.
That's right. And so, I guess that's what's so special about Thanksgiving is you just, you hear so much about remembering and you sit there and we are thankful, aren't we? We're thankful. Because we doubt again, it doesn't mean we're not thankful for what he's done. We're just humans. We're just old humans, you know. But he created these old humans and he loves us. He loves us. Yep. Because we are his children and that's how children are. You know, that's how family is. And we're family. We might not be related blood-wise. You might not be blood kin, but we are a family. We're Christians. We're children of God, and that makes us related in the most magnificent way. And, you know, one day, you know, we'll start leaving this old world, but we'll always be together because we know the Lord. And that is a comfort in itself. Let's see what I've got written down here. So God says he will not change. We know that's true. He does not change. He will be the same. And we know that we can trust that. Do y'all have any comments or anything on that? Okay. And then verses 5 through 7. Who'd like to read those for us?
Who will you compare me or make me equal? Who will you measure me with, so that we should be like each other? Those who pour out their bags of gold and weigh out their silver on scales, they hire a goldsmith, and he makes it into a god. Then they kneel and bow down to it. They lift it to their shoulder and bear it along. They set it in its place, and there it stands. It does not budge from its place. They cry out to it, but it doesn't answer. It saves no one.
Do you see a little sarcasm there? Yeah, maybe. What did he say in that first sentence, Kenny?
Who will you compare me to?
Mm-hmm.
Do you make me equal to?
Yeah. Who can we compare God to? It absolutely is absolutely impossible to compare God to anyone. You know, the closest we can get to it is family. You know, the way we love family, but even that doesn't even compare. And then he says, who can you compare me to? Who is equal to God? You know, when people ask you a question, they already know the answer. They just want you to confirm it. Yeah, that's what's going on here. No one's equal to him. No one compares to him. Who will you measure me with? Absolutely nothing and no one. Can't measure God, you know, cannot do that. Let's see. So there's nothing and no one that we can compare God to. Then it goes on to say, those who pour out their bags of gold and weigh silver on scales, they hire a goldsmith. What are they going to hire goldsmiths to do? To make it because they can't. What are they making, man? They're making them an idol. They're making them a god. And where will that God reside? Wherever they set him, right? He is totally dependent upon the people who created him, isn't he? As to where he sits and where he goes. And how is that so different than the God we serve? Yeah. God goes with his people, doesn't he? He can lead us or he can follow us. And he carries us. But an idol can do none of that. He's stuck wherever his people set him, on the shelf, up on the shelf. That's it. You know? I'm not against elf on the shelf at all. I'm just saying, you know, when you set an idol on a shelf, that's where it stays. It doesn't know what's going on. Totally different from the God that we serve. And not only do they make this, not only are the Israelites making these gods, they're kneeling and they're bowing down to it. Something they made. You know, very human to find an idol. And why do you think they did this? I think the Israelites believed in God, don't you?
They want something to see.
Something to see? Mm-hmm.
They didn't want that idol. So they want to do.
Well, now that's a good point.
Yes, they are.
Maybe they wanted a little insurance just in case God couldn't handle it. Maybe this idol could, we come up with things that become crutches in our life, don't we? Rather than God.
We've done a lot with plans that we plan.
Yeah.
We say we trust God with it, but we want that little bit of insurance, so we'll go and plan something out in case.
We got to have that little bit of control. We're just so human, and that's not a bad thing. God made us. We're human. So, and they say you cry out to these idols, but they cannot save you. They cannot help you. People put their trust in a lot of things. And sometimes they are things. Sometimes they are people. And that's why it's so important that when people put their trust in us, that they're able to keep that trust, But some people put their trust in people and immediately they're not going to be able to help them. You just know it, especially when that person is replacing God as the one to get them through things. Now, I believe that God puts people in our lives to help us. David, you go out with the Red Cross. God sends you to these places. You might not get to see the big picture right then, but I'm sure that somewhere, if God sends you, he's going to make a difference with what he sent you to do. People who go on mission trips, you might not see it then. You that have been. And I'm not just talking about abroad. I'm talking about, we've had several missions trips inside the States. So whether stateside or abroad, you might not see those, the effects of the ministry, but you believe that God's going to do something with it, right? Or else you wouldn't have gone. You wouldn't have gone and wasted your time. Because God is not created. And God is able to do all things because he doesn't change and he's just incomparable. It says the focus of the people needed to be on God instead of their situation. Now that is easy to type out on a piece of paper, is it not? That was easy for me to read. The focus of the people need to be on their God instead of their situation. I can give that advice to 100 people and mean it. And sincerely, honestly say, God is going to take care of you. God is with you. I can give that advice just like that. And I absolutely believe it. I do. But when it's my trouble and when it's my situation, it's just altogether different. But that's why it's so important for us to remind people, just as the Israelites are being reminded, God is with us and he cares for us and he's just gonna take care of us. Maybe not the way we want him to, but the way that will be best. So y'all got anything to say about any of that?
At the top of page 86, this is something you got to read 2 or 3 times to kind of understand. Just as it is impossible for people to comprehend the idea of thinking of something greater than the greatest thing they are capable of imagining, it is impossible to compare anything to the incomparable eternal God.
Yeah.
You got to read that 2 or 3 times.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? You can't even imagine or whatever.
You said a while ago, family was a little bit of an example, but then it'll be so much better. Like I said, you can't imagine. You can't imagine what you can't imagine.
Right.
And that's what he said.
That's why it's so hard to see the first. We think, and leave your family,
Yeah.
leave your spouse, leave your child. That is our closest connection.
Yeah.
That's how much we love that.
Right.
And God has something so much better, so much greater than that.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get our head around.
And you all heard this. If you haven't heard it at funerals, you've heard it in a sermon or something. When people are at the end of their life, they don't ever, I remember when my brother, when the nurse came in to talk to him, she said, what is your biggest concern? And he said, my family. Nobody ever says, oh, that report that I don't have finished. The graph. Yeah, we gotta work harder. Yeah. People don't say that, do they? Because it comes down to a bond. comes down to family and those that we love and those that we care about. And just as much as we love, I mean, tell me here again, Kenny, think of the person or persons that you love the most. And I mean, you love them equally, right? Can you imagine a greater love than that? You just can't imagine. Can you imagine that somebody else would have their best interest at hand more so than you do?
No. And that's the hardest thing of all, is your child.
Yes.
You are their greatest resource.
Mhm.
And you can't fix it.
Yeah.
That is the most helpless feeling in the entire.
Yes, it is. I
Because
agree.
God has to step above you.
Mhm.
You gotta get out of the way.
Right.
You say that's not a challenge,
Oh, I know it is.
just have right at
I've lived it. It is a huge
it.
challenge.
And see, that's what I'm saying. There's nothing. You can't compare you, your
Mm-mm.
mom, on me. I got it. I'm greater.
Mhm.
It's difficult.
It is. It's hard.
Lucas and I were talking a couple days ago about nine.
Mhm.
And I told him, I said, you know, heaven is a wonderful place. You know, everybody wants to go to heaven. I said, but I don't necessarily want to die.
Yeah. There's a song.
You know,
Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
it's supposed to, it's a great place, but I want to, I think it's human instinct to live.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want to live,
Well, yeah.
you know, and people say, well, heaven's a great thing, you know, you wouldn't come back if you wanted to. Even if you didn't want to get on back, they wouldn't want to come back.
Mhm.
I said, well, I don't feel getting up alone tonight, I just said, you pass me by, I don't want to go right now. I want to see the baby grow up.
Now you come back and tell us.
Right.
My mom always can go back and tell me,
Mhm.
you can't wait to get, you
Yeah.
don't know.
Mhm.
But that's what God wants us to do, I think. We're supposed to want to be here right to the end. We're supposed to want to live. That's why we don't commit suicide.
Right.
That's why it's frowned on. God's set in control. So we live it, do it, and do the best things we can, do what the Bible tells us to do, and then when it's time, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
But right up till the end, we should be doing it all.
Right.
It's a great place.
Yeah, I love living. I mean, I do. I enjoy it. I love to eat. I love to eat. I love a lot of things that go on this earth. I do.
There may be the best thing you ever had in your entire life, we don't know that.
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way somebody said, it's kind of like the fear of the unknown.
Yes. Mhm.
You know, I don't fear death or nothing like that, but I mean, ain't nobody ever come back from heaven.
Right, and you're not going with anybody else but yourself.
Right.
No, I don't just wait a little bit.
I saw something. It was a tombstone, and the person's tombstone said, "I know something you don't."
There you go.
That's where all the trust comes in.
Yeah.
Faith.
It is. It is. And as hard as life gets, sometimes we have to know that God is there for us, just as He was the Israelites. He doesn't love them anymore. He doesn't love us any less. He loves us. That's just it. He just loves us. And, you know, we have to learn to depend on Him. And yeah, we're not going to do it like we should all the time, but, you know, it's just because we're human. Anybody else got anything to say? This is a good lesson. It's just a good lesson. It's a very encouraging lesson. Then it says, remember this. Remember what? Remember what he just talked about? Or remember what's going to happen? It doesn't matter. We need to do both. We need to remember. Yeah, we need to yeah, and remember this.
Yeah.
Remember what I'm fixing to say. So it says here, remembering the nature of idols leads to the rejection of their worship. So if we know that idols can offer us nothing, it's talking to the Israelites here, idols can offer you nothing, I can offer you everything. Remember this. They can do nothing for you. But the truth, the same can be said to us today. You know, Annette, don't put your faith in that. That's not going to carry you past this life. But your faith in me, I can carry you through both. So there you go. You know, and it sounds easy, don't it? But when you live it, it's hard. And if you haven't been there, I pray and hope you never have to go through that. I do. I don't want anybody to have to go through stuff like that. It's not fun, but it happens. But we know that God is with us. He says, remember this and be brave. My mom used to tell me to behave. I knew exactly what that meant. Behave. You got to behave. My daddy said, don't do something on Friday night you're going to regret on Saturday morning. And I knew what he meant, you know. So But he said to be brave, have courage, Look what God has done all the way back to the creation of the earth. Who else could have created this place we call earth? Who else could have created this universe? Look back at what God has done. Look what he's done in your life, Israelites. Look what he's done in the past people's lives. He took the people out of Egypt. He brought them into the promised land. I'm going to restore you. Just have faith in me. Just trust me. You know, that's what he's telling them. Remember, be brave. Take it to heart. And sometimes I used to tell my kids, don't take it to heart. But, you know, because you get your feelings hurt real easy, right? If you take everything to heart. But God is saying, take my word to heart. Why does he say take it to heart? What does that heart got to do with anything?
Drove a lot of things.
Yeah. It's just the center of love, isn't it? I think, you know, send a Valentine, you ain't gonna put a kidney on it or a liver. If you sent somebody a happy Valentine's Day card and you had a liver or a lung or an ear, nah. What you gonna put on that? You're gonna put a heart, because that's where all the emotion is, right? That's where the love comes from. It's from your heart. Put a picture of your big toe on there. It's a heart. Everything comes from the heart. Take it. He didn't even say we don't even put a picture of our brain. He didn't say take it to your brain. Take it to your heart. Believe it. And remember what happened long ago. Remember what I've done for you. And I think that he says the same thing to us. And remember what I've done for you. Remember the things that you thought were hopeless that I have made hopeful. Remember the things that you thought were failure that I have made successful. And in between the failure and the success, there was God. That's what made the difference, was God being there and being with us. He said, remember what happened long ago, for I am God. No one else can say that. There can be many idols. There is one true and living God who has been with us forever and will be with us forever. For I am God and there is no other. There's nobody else like God. And there is no other. I am God and no one is like me. So for us, remember what we've been through, remember what we've come through, you know, and take courage. Take courage in what lies ahead and in the challenges we face. Take courage that we have friends, we have good Christian friends that pray for us, that are there for us, that support us, that truly love us. You know, take courage in that and know that we are a family, and know that I'm with you and that I never change. You know, it's important to know this. So then it says, I declare the end from the beginning and from long ago what is not yet done, saying my plan will take place and I will do all my will. I call a bird of prey from the east, a man for my purpose from a far country. Yes, I have spoken, so I will also bring it about. I have planned it, I will also do it. So God is all powerful, always has been, always will be. He predicted all these things that would happen. They happened. He predicted Jesus would come into the world. Isaiah gave us that. The prophet gave us that. We know that it happened. Only God was present at the beginning through to the people's current situation. Only God would be with them in the future, and also for us too. He says, God had repeatedly warned the people that if they failed to turn away from their sin, they would be exiled from the land of Israel. However, there was also hope, for God promised that when the people turned back to him, he would rescue them. And then we know that God called Cyrus, and Cyrus was the king. He was the ruler who conquered Babylon. And when he did that, he decreed the captives could return to their native lands. So God planned the events for Israel, just as he plans the events for our life. Knowing this should have given the people in exile every confidence in the future deliverance, and knowing this should give us a confidence in the future. Okay, and then he goes on to say, listen to me, you hard-hearted, far removed from justice. I am bringing my justice near. It is not far away, and my salvation will not delay. I will put salvation in Zion, my splendor in Israel. God reminded the people that he was consistent in his actions, past and present. And then he said that some would remain hard-hearted. People today remain hard-hearted. Some people become hard-hearted because of the things they go through, but it's God's desire that we draw closer to him when we go through hard things. And some people still didn't believe. It says many of the Israelites with their hard hearts refused to believe and therefore were far from righteousness. And we can see this in people today. However, even the unbelief of the house of Jacob or the unbelief of people that we know today would not stop God's plans. God's plan will prevail. God's salvation will prevail. And it says only God provides our salvation through Jesus Christ. He is still the deliverer. He is faithful past, present, and future. Have got anything to say about that? I actually thought I was on that last scripture. I flipped that page and I thought, but it's a very good list. Very encouraging.
Yeah, thank you for all the prayers and requests we made for him. The funeral will be here Wednesday. Yeah, he passed away Friday morning, at home, and family's doing pretty good. You know, they knew it was coming, but you don't ever really get ready for it. You know, they're coping. And who else? How's John? What's John's name? Full name?
John Adams. Uh-huh.
John Adams
We had John
rushing.
Adams and Jesse
Adams.
We got John Adams rushing.
John Adams.
It says on that trademark under Adams.
It says Adams, but it's John Adams.
I know, I've never
That's what
heard
we called him. I was like,
I never heard it called John Adams. Sonia said it more. I said, that ain't his name.
John
Somebody made a
Adams.
mistake.
We also had Jesse James.
Huh?
yeah, Jesse James and John Adams.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's their names.
I mean, okay, we'll remember him. He's,
Yeah.
you know, people get old. People get old and, you know, they wear out, I guess.
And Aunt Bobby said she's going through a lot.
There you go.
Remember Miss Donna in West Virginia? I
Donna
don't really
Cohen.
hear anything from her.
You heard
doctor
anything, David?
Friday.
She's supposed to go to Dr. Friday. Maybe Joey or Darren or something.
They didn't say anything during Christmas service
He
today.
didn't? Okay, I was just wondering if anybody heard.
I'm a battery and I'm a prayer.
Maybe we can help her. Was that food we sent? I
I've
mean,
got-
it's probably already done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, it's just.
I do know that she posted on her Facebook page, and I don't know how we can go about getting them to her, but she's also collecting purses, and they will fill them, or you can fill them for some of the ladies in this area that will get too. But I've got 2 cards I've got to give to Darren.
Anything, because I can hear.
Out there, maybe next Sunday on the credenza, for anybody in the church that may want to sign, just send to her to let her know we love her and praying for her.
We, a couple of weeks back, we decided that on the first Sunday of the month, we take up Sunday.
Yes, we did.
And this is the first Sunday of the
Yeah,
month. Thank you, Mike.
but, Tommy, we have a good event, so maybe we can just go like every 3 months or so instead of getting an abundance. We've got
Oh, my
almost
God, I do too.
$300.
We got what?
We've got almost $300.
And you're buying stamps and stuff from that, right, Tanya? Mary.
Give it to her. Yeah, she'll take it.
You hadn't been buying stamps for that, had you?
No, she hadn't.
Oh, yeah.
Her heart.
I milkshake money, Mike. She's getting your milkshake.
Bad cholesterol.
But anyway, no, if you wanna give, I don't care if we got $3 million, we still need to keep it.
Try to be consistent, 'cause you gotta remember,
We might,
You buy stamps, part of it.
Yeah.
we could designate some of that to go to nominate.
Mhm.
To help with her,
Yeah.
With those like, maybe just buy some Walmart gift cards, something like that.
I can do that.
it's not good, doing it, we did just sit in.
I
We can take up more. We all can go back to work. So Make some- make some more money.
Good Lord willing.
know. It's been a crazy year.
Let's do it.
Y'all realize this year has almost done.
Yeah, yeah,
At least we
absolutely.
had to go through it real fast.
Yes, that's right.
To send us.
Y'all let me know and I'll get them.
Well, you're missing a whole crowd of folks here. That's
Yeah.
you wait on, think about it, wait on next Sunday.
Okay,
That's a great
good deal.
Or do a group email to us and ask what they think on, what they think.
Okay, I'll put it on the group, our group email.
Or group text, either one.
All the girls get it. Don't let us want to get it.
They'll tell us what we think.
I can't. All the girls in Michigan, don't want to get it.
We'll let y'all know what y'all need to do.
Tony prefers it that way, actually. He don't want to have to remember.
Who else do we need to mention? Andy's preaching today instead of Joey, so it's,
Tony's going for another CT scan November the 10th. He has a fungal infection in his sinuses. And that's why his sinus infections keep coming back. So he's had 2 rounds of antibiotics since August. Yeah, and he has to take prednisone, and that just, prednisone just destroys your stomach and your esophagus. It's just really hard on him. And and now they're changing his blood pressure medicine. So hopefully, and they told him they don't want him in large crowds because they want to get these tests done and find out what's going on. So if y'all would just remember him on November the 10th. He told me he was coming today. I said, I'll tell the doctor.
and congratulations to Becca.
Oh, yeah. Becca and Colin and all that family. Yay.
Okay. What's that?
Cynthia said it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Linwood danced a lot.
We didn't need to hear that.
Is there, can you, we want to see that. Okay, oh, good. And since you're the in-law, it don't matter. You can share that video. All right.
I did.
Yeah, if y'all would continue to remember Tony's mom, she's doing good. She does have a skin cancer on her leg that they need to do something about probably, but it's one of those things. Gotta be careful. She's sweet. We do have to wear masks when we go to see her because she's, don't worry. Fragile, yes. Weighs a whopping 90 pounds and half my body weighs that. But she's sweet and she has a strong faith. So
It's not any sick, but if any of y'all would like some pecans, they're not shelved yet. But if anybody would like any pecans for Christmas bacon, let me know.
Well, if anybody needs any acres, they can find some. Yeah, I got.
Tanya has unshelled pecans if you want. So that'll be a long. Y'all got anything else? If you want to give a gift card for the Lottie Moon gift jar, if you would bring that by what's today? We need it by the 15th, right? Yeah, 2 weeks. If you want to bring 1 or 2, it don't matter. But if you want to do that, and I'll get those jars made up, and
Yeah, probably next week. maybe.
You're doing several jars.
we hope to be able to. Yeah, right. We hope to be able to do at least 2, depending on what we get. What's today, the 1st? So the 7th, 50, yeah. Oh, did I say the 7th? Oh, God, I can't count. That's why I don't do payroll. People get less than they should. That makes people mad. All right. Anybody else got anything to say? No? Would anybody like to dismiss us in prayer? I'd like to volunteer. Mike? Okay.
Lord, thank you for this one, Lord, thank you for that, Lord. We know the sickness should in the Lord, black man, they push the sweet, Lord. Please let us have a good stand, faith, witness, Lord, thank you.
Amen. Bye, y'all. Be careful traveling.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
There.